Outside the Luthuli House. Protests there today around the candidate registration process. The ANC spokesperson, Pule Mabe, has started speaking.
Together with the team to deal with all of the issues that come before them from time to time. You will also know that the process of the ANC of selecting councillor candidates for the 2021 local government elections is quite different to what has been happening or obtaining throughout the years. In that, for the first time this year, communities are having to participate on who finally becomes a representative in their own ward. It is no longer a process left only entirely to our own branch general meetings and all of that. It could be that Spamandla had emerged through that branch nomination process at BGMs, and when the process goes to a community meeting, emerge with a different kind of a name. For as long as that name enjoys the overwhelming support of that specific community, that would be the name of the person that then goes to represent the African National Congress in that specific ward. We are aware of disputes that have been brought forward. The Office of the Secretary General, led by our Deputy Secretary General, has been dealing with all of those issues. And of course, we did say that the cut-off of dealing with disputes was Saturday at 11 a.m. But we continued to then say that should there be issues that have not been attended to by the time we get to Saturday, or could there be issues that are still being brought up, the African National Congress doesn't close the window. It will still continue to deal with these issues even beyond elections, like we have done in the past. You see, because of the size of our party, including the dynamics that we are having to deal with, we always appeal to our structures to use available platforms well within their reach to attend to this. It's quite worrying that cadres are having to come as far afield as Limpopo in buses to come and bring those concerns, leaving the provincial structure in Limpopo. We hope, and we hope and want to believe that there is no underhand in terms of dealing with this ANC process, that the comrades that are here, if we ask them one by one, each one of them will confirm that they have paid for their transport as individual cadres, so that we do not come across sponsored maneuvers to really deal with the process of the ANC. Of course, cadres are here, they've got to raise their concerns. We always encourage them to at least go to areas well within their reach. We have made an announcement on numerous occasions that many of our comrades here at Luthuli House, I need to say this point, it's quite important, that many of our comrades here at Luthuli House are working from home. Now, coming to Luthuli House, where you are even likely not to find anyone at head office, because our national officials, members of the National Executive Committee, have been deployed in provinces and in regions to specifically attend to matters of local government elections. The Deputy Secretary General, as we speak, is in the Western Cape. The Treasurer General is also expected to be in the Eastern Cape. The President will also be going to Mpumalanga. Almost all of the officials will be discharging a program of election on behalf of the National Executive Committee. I hear that there could be issues raising, but they need to have trust and confidence in the leadership that is there in their provinces and regions. Those leadership is capable of, it is not possible. The ANC's renewal program is such that those that are elected to lead the African National Congress will have to lend an ear to structures of the ANC at the level that they lead. What we do not want, Spamandla. Well, we accept that there could be legitimate concerns, but we must also raise a matter of principle about ANC processes. They are democratically elected structures of the ANC in provinces and in regions. Those structures are entrusted with the responsibility of resolving issues that are happening at their level. the head office of the ANC does deal with issues, but it also confers with its own provincial, because what the NEC of the ANC will not do, it will not take away the authority of lower structures to be able to attend to issues. Where we need to call on sanity to prevail is to say to our comrades, if they believe that the concerns they have are legitimate and that the concerns they have are accompanied by evidential or documented proof, I mean, that which is fact and truth will not change. Whether it is raised in Polokwane or it is raised in Johannesburg, it will still produce the same results. They must have confidence in processes of organization, because when you adjudicate on disputes in the ANC, you've got to make sure that what ultimately prevails is the African National Congress itself. We assist with the renewal of the organization and are doing everything else to make sure that that renewal program finds resonance in members of the ANC willing to be led at whatever level of organization.
Okay, Paul. Another bite here. There is a case that has been opened against ANC leadership, top leadership, when it comes to the issue of salary payments for your staff members. You are accused of neglecting them. There is a theft charge or case that has been opened by Luthuli House and one employee, that is McDonald, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, these are interesting times. We will have to attend to this issue when it is brought to us formally. The African National Congress is capable of dealing with whatever issue that comes before it. Anyways, Pamanda, you will have to recognize and note that the ANC has been the only organization that has been transparent about its own affairs. The ANC was first to speak when it could not pay its own staffers here at Luthuli House, when it experienced challenges that some of you in the media are now aware of, because the Political Party Funding Act makes funding to political parties to be disclosed, including disclosing the identities of those making such funding. You would have seen that a party like the ANC has not necessarily received enough. And yet we are having to deal with a myriad of challenges on a daily basis. It is important that those that approach the courts or law enforcement agencies in whatever form or shape to register their concerns, they also accompany such with the contribution that they are making to the organization. So that we could be able to say, Spamandla, who's an employee at ENCA, is an anchor, runs a show from 8 to 9, comes to work every day at 7 o'clock. We've got security guards at head office who can report. They can even produce a roster. So that the ANC is not taken for granted by people who cannot produce records and evidential proof of them performing duties of the African National Congress. It is high time that people know that the ANC as we're a serious organization, self-respecting. Where there are matters brought against us in any court, we'll attend to that.
We're a serious organization which cannot pay its staff.
We can't pay our staff because we are donor-based. It doesn't mean that when you are donor-based, you cease to be serious. We carried the revolution even before this country could be liberated in 1994, when we did not even have money. Men and women of courage volunteered their time, sacrifice and everything to carry the wishes and aspirations of the people of this country. So it is not for the first time. Those that claim that they are true freedom fighters, they love the freedom of the people of this country, and are now approaching police stations to register what they believe are their own concerns, then those people must equally produce records of that. But because these are matters before the courts, people have opened a criminal case, and I'm sure that when the ANC deals with this, Spamandla, the ANC will also have to deal with merits of these things. You see, when you work at ENCA, you have got something called an access card. When you get to work, you know, you swipe at the door, it shows when you're at work and all of that. If we say you must work virtually, you'd have records. You can't work virtually and we always see you on television and social media insulting the ANC leadership. I mean, overregaing. Klapa. Here in the ANC, we employ men and women who commit their time to the work of the organization. Those who feel or believe that they've got a case against the leadership of the ANC, when such matters are brought to us and investigations are being conducted, we have got a legal team in the ANC that is capable of dealing with all of these issues. I take it that once matters are before police stations, they take a format called sub judice, and that the legal team would have to look into reasons that are being brought forward. They will engage with the investigators. In this case, actually, it's important that investigators interact with the ANC with greater speed so that the rosters, work schedules, activities of those that have opened the case. You see, we need to lay bare the responsibilities of those that have gone to the ANC, to the police stations. We must say, these are the tasks that they are expected to perform. And they must equally say, from day 1 to day 7, this is what I've done for the ANC. Let me clarify this point, because, you see, we cannot allow actions by some in society who believe that they can liquidate the ANC through whatever actions, taking advantage of the legitimate concerns of those that commit their full-time attention to the work of the African National Congress. We will be able to deal with those issues. The ANC has not reneged. Where the African National Congress needed to clarify its employees about its position, including its inability to fulfill its monthly obligations, the ANC has done so. It has never happened that the ANC would leave its staffers without being paid, and it does not tell them. You know, if the ANC was producing Cadbury, Kit Kat, running farms, producing things that it sells, out of which it generates income, the ANC would then be able to say, can I just conclude this point? Because it cannot be that you are listening to people at police stations, and when we must speak for ourselves and respond, we are now being stopped. Can we just be allowed to conclude our point? Because if the ANC was doing this money-making activity every day, which allows it to meet and fulfill its recurring obligations, the ANC would certainly be able to do so. What is strengths, Pamandla, is that some of these comrades who are today opening cases against the ANC did not apply for their jobs. They were headhunted, brought in to deal with whatever situations that they might have been facing at the time. Aba apply, hauna motho a ka reng ke apply-ile ke biditjwe ba reng certificate sa boruti re nyaka chaplain ya ANC. Very important to note that. So the ANC does everything it can to care for its cadres, explain its reasons to its comrades where it is unable to deal with a number of other things. But of course, there's a case now being brought, and I'm sure that when investigators approach the ANC, the African National Congress will be able to state its own case. It is important that those that have approached the police must also be sitting with their records. This is what we had performed.
Are you basically saying that Luthuli House plays no role here at Luthuli House? We asked him earlier, and he said that he works in the Secretary General's office. And from what you are saying, you are basically saying that he makes no contributions.
Well, if he works in the Secretary General's office, no problem. He must then tell the police what he did in the past 60 days, or in the past 24 hours of the ANC, before, of course, when the letter of dismissal was written to him. If he works for the ANC and he works in the Secretary General's office, does attending courts and going all over breaking COVID regulations associate with work in the SG's office? We see Luthuli House on television. We don't see him here at Luthuli House. People who worked at the SG's office, even when the SG was asked to step aside, those cadres that are in the SG's office were still allocated other responsibilities. They were still made to fulfill certain obligations. We need to tell society the truth. ANC is not an organization of social security. It employs people who put their time and efforts to the livelihood of the African National Congress. There is no way that the ANC will be able to survive and lead the trajectory of uniting our people when those that are in the employ of the ANC are not here to perform their own duties. We understood when comrades were on a go slow, on a stay away, their reasons were legitimate. It had to do with a number of things. There's been engagement with staff representatives. And we understand the concerns that they are raising, because these are men and women who commit their full-time attention to the work of the African National Congress. So people must not use the name of the Secretary General to justify Bolofa. People must never do that. You can't abscond from work and use the fact that you work in the Secretary General's office. The Secretary General of the African National Congress, Comrade Makashule, has been asked by the National Executive Committee to step aside owing to a resolution of conference. Those that are in his office were not taken out of the payroll of the ANC. They were rather allocated other responsibilities in the organization, so that in the intervening period, they are still expected to work for the ANC. ANC doesn't pay people because it knows them by their first names. ANC pays people because they are working and doing something. When our staffers were on strike, there was interface between the ANC and their representatives.
When it comes to the issue around those who are protesting outside, Pule, one would say that you continue to see this. If you drive past Luthuli House on a daily basis, there are a number of people who continue to come here and protest over the list submissions. Is the ANC concerned at all about the chaos that this will bring about when it comes to the voting process? Because when you speak to your members, they are threatening you with those votes, and they say that they will do to you what they did to you in 2016 in Tshwane, in Johannesburg. Are you not concerned at all about resolving the issues with your branches? Well,
we are doing everything else in our power to deal with the issues of concerns that are being brought by our cadres. But you see, Mbali, we must clarify something. When you don't vote in your own ward, it is not the ANC you are dealing with. You are dealing with yourself, because the delivery of services done through an ANC councillor impacts on your own living condition. If you are so willing that you can give away the livelihood of a community where you stay because there are disputes, then you must be comfortable being led by different people in your own community. Because these are local government elections. It is not President Ramaphosa who is going to be the mayor of Thulamela. It is not National Chair Gwede Mantashe who is going to be the mayor of Buffalo City. It is not the Deputy Secretary Jesse Duarte who is going to be a mayor of the city of Cape Town. It is not Deputy President David Mabuza who is going to be the mayor of Tshwane. It is not going to be Paul Mashatila, Treasurer General, who is going to be a mayor of Katatu. It is going to be these comrades of the African National Congress who are going to have to lead their localities and continue doing the good work that the ANC was doing. Should they feel aggrieved or not be entirely satisfied on how processes are being handled at their level, they are welcomed to deposit evidential proof to the relevant structures of the ANC, so that if there are those in the ANC found to have flouted processes of the ANC, even beyond elections, we do and effect what we did after 2011. It is not for the first time that the ANC is having to deal with an instance such as this. When our leadership was elected after the 53rd National Conference in Mangaung, we still had to go out and deal with issues that happened in 2011. Can tell you now, if the ANC discovers that the process that made Mbali a councillor was some wrongful maneuver, the ANC will act on that. Our communities need to have faith that we are capable of acting in their interest. There are no holy cows in the African National Congress. Processes of the ANC are created to protect the integrity of the movement. The renewal of the ANC is such that we have now opened the organization, especially as it relates to public representatives, to the entirety of society. Again, we said we are a leader of society. We are now allowing communities to choose who must lead them. We are being called by ordinary members of the community about their own issues at that level. We can assure them that they've got to be patient with the process of the ANC. and believe and trust that the ANC will deal with their issues.
Well, some of those protesters, they're saying that they've got evidence. And some of them have approached the former Deputy President, Pule Mabe, as the one who's responsible to adjudicate on all these matters. Are you confident that by the 21st of September, as you were expected to submit your candidate list, you would have done that in light of all these protests that are happening?
Well, and Debo, I can tell you now that we are almost done, actually, because we don't necessarily have to wait for the last bell to ring. We have got quite a capable admin team that reports to the Deputy Secretary General, Comrade Jesse Duarte, and they've been doing everything that they can in their power to make sure that we meet this. Where there are glitches and challenges, we are addressing all of that. You see, it's interesting because even yourselves in the media are taking great interest in the work of the African National Congress, because you too believe that it is only the ANC that can liberate the people of this country. You can understand that we are the only organization that, you are right, Mbali, that's why we will be the only organization with the kind of traffic you see outside, because we represent communities. So you won't see this in outside the offices of other organizations, because they don't have this mass.
Because they pay their staff members.
No, they've never told you that. If there's something you know which we don't know, you are most welcomed. I mean, it's possible that you might be belonging elsewhere. We might not be knowing. So if the party you belong to has shared records with yourselves, you are welcomed to say it here. Because we may not know ourselves. But at least the ANC, for what concerns it, has spoken on its behalf.
These protesters, Pule, they say they've exhausted everything. The internal processes, but nothing is happening. And now they've resorted to come here. So the question is, what are you doing in light of all these things as the ANC? Because President Pule Mabe is the one responsible to sort all these things. But it seems they're not getting joy from his office. Well,
it is not entirely factual. It is not entirely factual. You see, Ntebu, when you raise a dispute, when you raise a dispute, it doesn't mean that a dispute must produce the outcomes you are looking for. The ANC is a big organization. There are always two sides to the story. We've been here at Luthuli House for some time. We have had people coming here to raise issues that when tested against facts, those issues did not stand. I am not saying comrades who are here don't have valid issues, but it is important that as you adjudicate on these things, you also conduct investigations. Because, you see, while there are cadres who are here, there are many others who are in communities. Because it will be unfair for you to want to believe that a 64-seater bus represent the membership of the ANC in one community. Really? That our ANC only has 64 members in that community. Oh, okay. So you are suggesting that they have sent the best amongst them. No, I'm asking. So you are saying. So you are going back to the point I was making, that we need to check if they paid for themselves. So if you are saying representatives, it means in communities there are special committees that you in the media know of that sit in a corner and craft disputes. Are we missing something here?
Pule, they're threatening that they won't vote if you guys don't resolve their problems. Do you care or do you don't care?
Well, let me tell you, in the ANC, we care about each and every vote. Every vote in the African National Congress matters. That's why, even when the ANC has won elections, it doesn't go and say, oh, Freddie, only yourselves because you voted. Victory parties of the ANC don't need a finger sticker or a marking pen to show that you voted for you to celebrate with the ANC. We have celebrated.